Lawyer Joyce Bawah. But he can't answer that. It's me and any cobona, yes, sema if you mobile. Council be able to there. Everybody I say, everybody I say, everybody I say. Monium de Jawo.
Oh, sharp. So fine is in your dear. What me say right from the word go, fantastic lyrics.
Yeah.
Sammy a banger.
Another banger.
Another banger.
If free back on also the other ways. Very interesting. But I say I be tell who I say I was street so much chatty shirt near dear and social media. Kunimu na ye di ana se nkofo na eje mwatum.
Oh, good morning. Any munyina mi chacha munyina.
Yeah, na ye jos.
Na what me na pay my a bit say
yes.
And I'm quite saying no be 10:30 na still am go UTV.
Oh.
Na me ko community engagements be mienu ana me say wotation ngwa.
Wow.
Na pano so many my sisters here na quite so e wo palace small your man.
Okay.
And my police crack or me driver because traffic no door so panty of a median.
Oh, moko far fly over the so.
Fly over.
Come na do I no.
They say your mama na sha senti said na do abewie so ejuma in they say continue with your senti. Me who say idea yen shedanti ase but any nyina ye part of democracy.
Yes.
Ghana obi an himself for Mahama road if he give at sa ko do baby omo bi no send there yin baby a ehye ase fie na you say him say ye nkrofo baby etiti onti they all know what the record of that road is nti wo sha for the very first time no man to say President Akufo-Addo di John Mahama was our speech no more. It was very unusual because I said almost sure said they be na MPSO attack radio then no crown ma ba miako jina keep ko say can say won be airport nyoma just because they wanted to say something more profound than idea John Mahama and us NDC abonti ye da nyame ase say nyoma bi wo ho a enya dia ye ko ntokwa wo ho na me de bia me hwa entina me hwe se me hwe John Mahama campaign ya ye sha sia be sienne unim say in terms of your campaign conversations your second nationwide tour ni na we cry wo 14 regions ochina ye be wie sa second tour we eastern region will be concluded at China enyumbre. Na me say we share campaigns here ye nyina. First one no na listening to. What you say? I reach Ghana he nyina associations, trade associations, professional groups, any associations. Inti idea we had a fantastic conversations with almost everybody.
I see.
What you say?
Yes.
Inti ye be drew and cry. Ne fan say we had gone through a listening tour. Na ye manifesto no ejina sa conversation imu ye sha say people's manifesto no ya dia ehu hia say a bed fa Ghana akoto reset.
Yeah.
What you say because who sha me say in terms of your democracy cry we are just on the cusp.
I see. Of
making this huge, profound impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's always difficult to complete them. Now, me sure it is also a certain aspect of your leadership.
Okay.
What you are saying, I may say, so we share aggression of election between 2012 even to 2016.
Yeah.
We share a Supreme Court petition here. Share John Mahama.
Sure.
It sought to undermine his legitimacy in a democratic dispensation. I say 50+1. Yeah, there or the man president.
Yes.
But we share sa petition no it actually undermined everything about that win by John Dramani Mahama.
I see.
Until even after the 8 months, we share say. The government will even settle down. It's not always easy.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Unfortunately or unfortunately, nasa gripping a power supply semi ebamu.
The Almighty doom so.
Now and also something profound happened.
I see.
Before Enra, President Akufo-Addo Kokachi Obia of Parliament say, doom so the ombe jai ama umampenyi John Mahama. Idea omodie. Do so emphatomo.
Yeah.
Tienwa so ko kan ho asem say ye hwe na yes obey hwe se ne obey improve on power supply on electricity supply. Now I was now beginning to wonder. Mr. Mahama say it is the double standards. and the inconsistencies of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia.
Na
me see ene aye bon komo nyina. Nka mo media. Mo befa nyomo mo kan ye prior to they are actually arriving at Jubilee House. At the body bia wo mo station si so na ema traffic ejina se na ejina no a. Me sure say campaign de nka Bawumia ni campaign.
I see.
What you say?
Yes.
Nko ni campaign bia me say my brother. Me chin wo Ghana hapa because of Mr. Mahama. Into idea, I've come to see this country in a way that many people probably don't appreciate. Na me wo joke bi kra me catch Mr. Mahama de bia say obi a obeye ejuma wo government mu no e was sesani pakrono. They must have told the 16 regions of Ghana. Me say wo hwe senior nipa si bre e wo Ghana ha. Eto de bia wo pe say bibia na wo be waste bibi kra wo be dwen hu twice.
Yeah.
Na de bia wo sorry a sika dodo a wo yi e wo bag mu kra just to make life slightly better for somebody. And no cranye easy.
I see.
What I say?
Yes.
So we share hardship no and there. Now me say research I that government I know there. And yeah, this there. Ghana Statistical Service.
Yes, sure.
We are buying agency.
Yes. Yes.
And this Obekachira will say corruption has gotten worse over the last 8 years. Say hardship and poverty have both worsened. Say young Crawford that the Nina Omuyo here for and they are even multi-dimensionally poorer across the country. Now what him say the thing about Ghana is say 16 regions Ghana greater and inner cities no Nina they have a rural component.
Yeah, that's true.
Greater Accra,
yeah.
Greater Kumasi, Greater Tamale, Omunyina Bibia wo very rural. Me call Felix constituency in 2020. AAK, Abra Sebu, Asamankesi. Half of it, who light poda.
Interesting.
Baby. So if NDC Bekachira will say, by the time John Mahama was leaving office, we had achieved coverage of electricity about 83.6%. No, Bekachira will say they did nothing. We had tried to improve water supply. Adenta got water for the first time under the Mills Mahama administration. In Tiwusha, Satishi desalination project. Na idea who here papa.
I see. Yebedia no home komo. Yebedia won't come na yewra into the discussion proper. All right, we are back. Onia 95.1. 25 minutes after 9. I got 15 more days. Barely 15 more days. Near Kwakotwaba. JB, Eshe JB. So, and so Baby Jim. So, one JB, a lawyer Joyce Bawah, and the other JB, a Septudi, a Jumawoni affair. JB, I quite baby.
I won't say what my tree naira.
Yes, so may you go straight to the discussion.
Aye.
Now, a binomo bisa John Dramani Mahama. Former president. As a core campaign platform bi was a fufuru bi a oka. Enti ama ye sheda nya ne core campaign message. E dey pa ne the core campaign message Mr. Mahama edinam e ka kire Ghana for, and what will also be his approach to solving economic and this social issues are ye di ka bobosu.
Unim say me pese me san hwe se ne me san free si o question no. O ka say un sheda nya because they be o ka be different I mean jindi. Me sure say research no chire mu say ni here Ghana se siane economy first and foremost.
Yes. Second
ejuma ho asem. And third but not the least accountability. Bra me see ohia I wo Ghana nya agro. What you say?
Yeah.
Na se wo share lack of development so I wo ho no. Who say they be me can say nkomo ya boy. Because e sheda enye ade a e new.
Enya de fufuro.
Aha, what you say?
Yeah, sure.
Now we share John Mahama so you be a me share Ghana ha pa. Se wo fa John Mahama ni Akufo-Addo ni Kufo no mo a. Se afa de Ghana obi an share the nim Ghana and chance ankrofo.
That's true.
What you say?
That's true.
They've been old competitors, old foes. Omo share se kromu yejuma of parliament together. They both served at very high levels of cabinet.
Yeah, that's true.
Na abeya dia himself John Mahama crowd obey vice president. Akufo-Addo de wanye vice okoye president. What you say? Enti me sure say I would have expected say ebedu time omo abeji presidential space yi ube hu say democracy no ka be sakakra
stable
na be stable but we share research aye nyina ye nya sese ajebi ade a ube hu say there's a lot of apathy young people are very apathetic ade a em say omo share dan democracy no endibio na we share Oman Penny Akufo-Addo, the campaign was largely around the rule of law, nyoma. Who is not can name agency open human rights, nyomanti. No, you'll be a sans sem be here no pa. But I am said to be a power no, senior winyano. And I think in 2016, because of doom so huge, serious disinformation, any propaganda, that time no, the idea it was a bit destabilizing. But now you share down nomenclature, nkayedebe say our conversation no to put it in proper context. Nti omunya campaign no very very easy. No munya result so na it gives them almost awesome power. Nti wukai se kanino kradebi obebi na no almost 1 million Ghanaians elected him. But the question I ask is that over 8 years how has he treated that confidence that was reposed in him by almost 1 million Ghanaians no? By 2020, JB, which me who say now take complete. In fact, we had actually redefined the conversation because in him say Ghana NDC any MPP votes say is just a little above 500,000 votes. And that has been the case since the inception of this Fourth Republic.
That's true.
It is a we share records no. Sa number no munya no me sure. Me sure say I mean digress kakra. Sa rig nyome and no so share say in 2016. Because yes, they were not sure some baby sa election no. Because we share mathematically me son or a mathematician. Until we share numbers no free sa time ebe seen there. That result in 2020 no. We share mathematically untiase. But when the idea I also say a idea ube said that level of confidence no had almost completely disappeared by 2020.
I see.
And we had returned to the status quo to the extent that NDC and MPP cry or parliament had similar numbers. For the first time for an opposition leader to leave office. What you say? By such a margin. And 4 years later, nearly won an election. In Accra here, Akufo-Addo and John Mahama matched each other boot for boot.
That's true.
Constituency after constituency. That should tell you something. Says our confidence and na yenina. When you say elections, ya udia ubia ya uba. Presidency no any discrimination.
Ghana first.
Exactly. Nti usha this level of nepotism. It took something away from Akufo-Addo. And I'm sure by 2020 no bien will say, oh, sa papa ide jama se wunye ni nipa ana se wunye ni relative ana se wunye se me say president because akofa ni ba wa no awo no amano such a privileged position there him say you do it but you do it sparingly. Now share another side the very close family relatives they say me but how did they campaign to come into power? Which I say so a idea by 2020 no behind him say I'll put my job on the line for sanitation. I'll put my job on the line to fight corruption. I'll put my job on the line for anti-galamsey issues. No behind him say and sheda nyampa. Until fast forward. Who call region after region. Share Greater Accra say a capital. Who share Greater Accra? They importi na idea aya ebeshe ubi asetina aye bonkomwe. And rana mutation ngwa. Which I consider as half rural, half peri-urban. Cautious in your here. Development now you can't watch them no. They do teaching ngwa. Which I say, the conversations no will relatively not be that different. Which I say, just coming back to your point. Take it from when John Mahama left office to today. In terms of access to electricity, now you are near work at Krachi. Bibi WOHO my friend low voltage. Who cause our areas no nyina that's what they are grappling with.
Oh really?
Oh yes.
Now,
I'm telling you.
I see.
Yes. Pasani sa areas no nyina. Who the phone crack or to charge so in charge that. Yes. Who share bulbs now it is say very almost a very dark shade. Aye. Omo mu ton yoma. Omo mu frozen businesses. Omo mu to aduani ni nyoma. Enti Akufo-Addo nkasa nim say krom no nyoma ehia omo ehia omo no enya de obia ekuma ade omo kuma eji ewejuma ya baso.
Would you say
we share economic indicators ni nyina aye wo moania we are worse off.
I see.
Totally.
And you would say from 2016 up to 2020 as a Ghana for no mo ho ana?
Oh, was me say portions be there, of course. Say when you say be say nyo bia.
Yeah.
Now we share senior akufado ye ni operations sa. Senior di ba me be share MPP no. Sa no person dey say be share Ghana for. What you say?
Yeah, sure.
And because he also enjoys a certain modicum of space no. Wa fan say Ghana ye personal property. Bibia o person ye bi otimi ye a obi antimi challenge no.
I see.
And me may say, yeah, media space. If we put them to strict proof on a daily basis, on the promises they made, on what they offered to deliver, even in terms of law, cry, or human rights, I was West Wagon report. How was it implemented? And what is press conference by a military commander?
Yes. I heard Sammy Jemfi talk about it.
By a military commander, the sheer effrontery, the arrogance, may say 16 days more. Let's vote to end this impunity and arrogance of power.
I see.
Now, baby, will be a military there. They are very well respected. Now, military officers, someone kasa by heart. Me fear, me warfare, top one. No, you're top military officer. Me other uncle, no, you're top police officer. Until I have cousins who have even taken that history and still serve in the services. They don't talk by heart.
You share the way you see Kasafa economy, the rates of the CD dollar depreciation, the way a name is you can now. Ebino mo kase John Dramani Mahama, but what is he going to do so differently? Ama ye dollar no and I see no etime. I'm matching with the dollar to making sure businesses will stabilize and businesses will grow faster than it is right now. Because near oye economic risk to credit me na near communicator and as on near communication experts.
Boss.
Yes, sir. Yes, madam.
Unim baby.
Catch them.
So we share election year is a straight horse race.
I see.
Between the MPP and the NDC.
I see.
We have a gentleman of enormous experience in John Mahama. Me see, there's one thing about JM that I love. He's a deep thinker.
I see.
We share JM now when it's not say bon comment. You would get it. Onye perfect. Na debi Onua suchere say, Oye president no, it wasn't perfect. But you know, there's one thing he understood. Says Ghana ejuma wa sembeye easier. We must improve infrastructure. Se Ghana be middle income status and power. We must improve infrastructure. Se Ghana be fat in space as a beacon of hope, as the black star of Africa. Senior Sajifu no Sisi infrastructure no. Eya dia I was say yeshemu. Se Ghana school kola be ye kola future and kola obia here no. E was say improving on infrastructure. Now people nipa besides that time they say infrastructure never be there na. Now overpass, flyover, ni nyoma ye call ye circle interchange. Na uniga na ha. Na that time ni e we kwan. Sa na ye beside. And net kwan no me sure say obiara in we kwan. What you say? And kwan no will not put food on your table. Ghanaians have gotten multi-dimensionally poorer under his watch.
Yeah.
In the recklessness of the borrowing spree that they've gone on, how have those monies impacted the lives of Ghana's most poor? We share statistics now. 14.7% of our citizens today have no jobs.
Yeah, that's true.
But in that 14.17%, no, there's a category underemployed. Now we share category of underemployed. Now majority of them yeah ma. Now a man no omuni ejima omuni bibiano omunkola omuye den. No muye almost surviving. In Ghana, Hano, our population tells us to say, Emano, we are above 51.2%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Inti se ma sorry say, omo be sorry say, abain besa san, dear Ghana female population alone can achieve that. Because se war beba, Emano no mubre. Pandemic no buy, nurses no near bo more by nina. They were women mostly. Se ehia beba. a man who will feel it more than a who share sanitary towels, who share school dropout rates, who share teenage pregnancy. The only category of persons bread and suffer from all this is the girl child. Now, wouldn't say NDC there? Yeah, Social Democratic Party. We think more about the generality of the populace. Equity is at the basis of social democracy.
Yeah.
Equity. Live and let live. What you say?
Yeah.
Share me small business me amidi ejuma. Say obi ba me company. You will introduce them to everybody. You will offer them the levels of leadership and reporting lines. You integrate them in a way that obi shiano no. Only know a respectable relationship, because say our company and our environment and ye peaceful, and our governance system and ye peaceful. Say embasso, miti ye were about me voice. Our catcher say the single largest investment in northern Ghana, Kwalugu Dam. Me radio station be one of your sister stations with a debate with a VRA officer, because we had visited Kwalugu Dam bieniho. Who share phase 1 that my a serve Upper East region no. Dear John Mahama na rehabilitate sa dam no. Na ne wo ko share Upper East region nsuonti. Farms no nyina say.
Wow.
No, you come back to the conversation about hydropower as against gas. When John Mahama realized say Kufo Bui Dam no enya dia ebetimia augmented services of Akosombo. Or we realize this says say ye benya kania no be sisu empower that industrialization effort that he was making no. I was say we had to think outside the box. This is like a tinder box because idea wouldn't ni ewomu. Idea won't share them who be poda. Na Ghana high infrastructure they say when the heat turbines when enti and what's them that. Na solar kra na say na solar be idea ye nyina ye hwemu kakra. Enti say ukofa independent power producers assembly and they sure say you would have to go backwards. Dig within yourself. Because even the very basic infrastructure was lacking. This is a country that was still struggling even with switchovers from solar to hydropower. Enti share presidency no my brother. And ya grow the thinking that goes into it. Enti say we should be obey a campaign. Or you see attacks on the output or capacity of the successor and the predecessor question their own sincerity.
Interesting. Now there is one issue here, many message you want to see, and it has to do with the teacher training and nursing training allowances. Meaning say what the home come be brave, but for the records, almost me miss say mo past record mo twemu. And no so can who be Emma Ghana forecast a monk na fee. Now, Moba under your leadership, Moba set to your allowance now some will be more introduce you a new thing at the amount. You
see, my chemu say, and no cry me who news item be. Say teachers' allowances, teachers' salaries have delayed.
Yes.
Me tie ye ura ba omia oko region B.
Yes.
Eko ka say allowances no or my instruction from the political platform to Ghana's finance minister. So untua arrears of sa outstanding. Me share nurses across the country. Omo wie nursing school Jamabe 2016.
Yeah, that was 2000. Yeah.
Thank you. Omo nyanya posting bia enko bebia obian kan wasem. Me me share campaign terrain no say menti say teachers attacking openly government as they were doing when the NDC was in office. Menti say nurses omoye weapons of campaign as they did prior to 2016. Na misi teacher bi owo Ghana ha Onua fa na kuma onim say teacher livelihoods education wo Ghana ha say aban bi wo ho after sajifu omoye adwuma ama a teacher for any education wo Ghana on quality, on access, on research, on support. Who ye NDC fimwa minjin this obia wa ye bida. You see, let's quit the propaganda and the lies. What I say? Now, sa teacher say me cry, how did it even become a political gimmick? I can't get it. What I say? How about other professional categories that do not have allowances to talk about? But I remember it was to do with research allowance. It was also to do with a forensic audit.
Yeah, sure.
It was also to do with an opportunity to re-engage. Now, I said ghost names were a big issue at the time. Until one said, me say, and your propaganda need disinformation in tia. Now, John Mahama and Kasankasa Osha said, so catch a debia. No, you teacher. What you say? Na Jane. Ne oh we are say oba you tell me mami.
Yeah,
and you teaching na onye hwe
yeah.
E be den na obi a oye lecturer nkasa papa be ka kire o say ade e be boa teachers me twa mu senia embo mu bio. Teachers are one of the most critical mass institutions we have or constituencies we have. No government jokes with anything to do with teachers. Until even before 2020, when they made this a huge political weapon.
Yeah.
Mr. Mahama Kai say, if it's allowances you want, which allowances, how much are they? Don't worry, we'll give it to you.
I see.
So we are still on that conversation. What you are saying?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, say, you see, going forward, me major to Muse, and maybe me a loyalty, me major democracy. It's also about negotiations.
Yeah.
There's a way that you must always engage. Until I'm looking forward, say, NDC incoming administration, yeah, incoming education minister, you'll be only teachers better to review everything that affects or bothers on teachers. Now, me say, teacher na kaninonya 3,000 cedis in the days of the NDC, and then the value of that 3,000 is 300 Ghana cedis. The dollar we left was 4 cedis to the dollar, and then it is 16 cedis and almost 17. Our private schools, they know that what I'm saying is true. Would the start 3,000 and the uko to eduane the value of it is 300 cedis. So you see, I think that when we have these debates, look, they enjoy partisanship. No, me wouldn't say me propaganda na basa conversations because me, I also have a reputation that I need to protect because I will go back and practice law. I feel cry for partisans court na Supreme Court. Me classmate NSKU or Supreme Court. Me sure say me cry say me na me say me person me call here. Me so me to court na hobi. What you say?
Yeah, sure.
Whatever you do it within a certain basic modicum of a year for that person. Now me access to say conversation no share and pass me share teachers be. When say me, I love the campaigns for 2 reasons.
I see.
The constituents that I also have as people I interact with on the sidelines of the campaign. Now we catch MBB and I thought about it. I say, oh madam, you know, in my whole family, we all go to teacher training school before we go to university. Nti sa allowance no ojeno. Then you can audition fee ni nkola ni nyoma. So they have a good case. So when Mr. Mahama said even before 2020, say allowance is not more pay, why not? But there's another photograph we need to look at.
Okay.
A wider student loan trust fund. But when you say loan was same day, we want many why him.
Yeah.
Who go for form? Now we go for guarantors. Now we go school cry now we deka. Who benya we first salary I was say we try saka ya answer now we say na snit cry yen na him snit was and the snit sika no mo de. They have 6 director generals of snit. Me mami one of the longest pensioners on the list of snit. Onua no a cap 30 which was a better insurance cover. How much does she get? It can me show no so cry now at 84. Into obia or ye pensioner. Sa haircuts no ye no. And yet we were told said there will be no haircuts. Your investments will be protected. Me say on the lies of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia alone, they deserve not to even open their mouths. If you are looking for credibility, trustworthiness, Mr. Mahama puts it nicely. One said decision be on Mofaye was completely popular.
Yeah.
But when you look at it within the context, you say there was a basis for it.
I see.
If you are looking for pragmatism, you are looking for a realistic outlook. You are looking for a credit-worthy human being. And no make your cross and now Ghana cedi to the dollar, yes, 17 cedis. Credit credit scoring system. Me say, credit score no. Your salary must be good.
Yeah.
Your pay slip must be evident. You must be gainfully employed, a sustainable type of employment. Inti credit score no Ghana hanya ube fine there. Ebia half of the population will be anya score bia. Businesses cry they won't score anything.
So from the conversation, it means to say Mr. Mahama will still maintain their allowances.
This was a conversation we moved on from 2020.
Oh, I see.
I think that teachers are a huge constituency.
I see.
And they have a case.
I see.
And you see, politically, let's focus on what is important today. jobs for our people.
Yeah.
In the whole of ECOWAS, we have 350 million individuals. Majority of that number are young people. The biggest security threat today is joblessness.
Yeah.
It was Mahama said there, or see $10 billion big push agenda no, or the be share private sector and some. Say ye be implemented 24-hour economy. Now 24-hour economy is not an event. It is a process. And I ask people, we have tried everything in Ghana. In Ghana, Kroma, it has developed without a complementary system of transportation. Unim number of jobs that transportation logistics creates for young people. Now we share Ghana by 5 near point juma. Who will be crowd or business more 5 who room call secretary crana or show him double. Yeah, yen die ye juma 24/7 DBA. When you engage people, they find it very difficult to cope. Now me say, if your economy ends at 8 p.m. at 5 p.m., how do you improve growth? So Mr. Mahama has a fantastic agenda. Okay, and everybody agrees. And look, I don't want us to sit on the fence to have these conversations. I expect that as the AGI has promised, as the American Chamber of Commerce has promised, as the Teachers Association of Ghana has promised, they will come on board to ensure that this economic outlook that will generate jobs and create growth will be a matter that all of us as citizens, me, Mr. Mahama, the next administration, the pragmatism will be seen on the roads and streets of Ghana.
I see.
Which I say, because we must also ensure that we uplift our rural communities. We build regional economies through agric. Because we shall look. Do you know that agric still contributes over 30% to Ghana's GDP?
Absolutely. We should even be more.
We should even be more. And if it is more, where will be the conversation about jobs? My mother always ran a small business of what? Shea butter and selling shea nuts to cocoa board.
Okay, but this 24-hour economy, is there any timeline? That's so say you swear John Dramani Mahama in on the 7th January. On the 8th of January, we started 24-hour economy.
He has no options. I said the singular threat to our democracy today is unemployment. The singular threat to our security today is unemployment. When you go on this campaign now, Obi Mami, 1, 3, 4, our universities are churning out annually 300,000 students. These are the public universities, so you haven't added TVET, you haven't added all the other institutions of learning, all the private universities we have. Indeed, I've heard that Islamic University has no charter. They are still knocking on the doors of Mr. Mahama that when he comes into office, yes, they need a charter so that they can now become an independent degree awarding institution. So let me say one thing, that Rome wasn't built in a day. The 24-hour economic policy, many WOHO students, we used to go to the trade fair and work. We used to go to Busy Internet. We used to go to GCNet. No more Premier Towers. What is me? My ejuma pa be briansa me be call politics mu. Until I look at things from a very professional perspective. What you say na court to cry na ye call. Can you your time? Cocoa affairs. Na dey na wo. Computer kra na ni court ho. And I say obe kwa court na say obeji court processes. Chale even to realign and reconcile your court processes, it was a whole agenda. You go and tip clerks, typewriter, bako. After the e-governance project was introduced, we had improved court infrastructure. We had improved court facilities. And then, who call court and only say, we are not print out the winning. Who crowd to be laptop, You see, we don't give credit to the NDC.
I see.
Because Professor Mills himself was from that ilk. So he understood what we needed to improve on our governance system. Look at our governance institutions. Me say me call debate. No be obe debate me no fifiare. To come and argue with me said the 11-point-something million on Kwalogono. They used it for groundwork. Me bisan say sikana kaya no ni papa dia or the sikane beyesa. She PDS at the Public Accounts Committee. CEO Timika Chemini will say $12 million. No, it is lost because they couldn't implement the project. For what reason? Because of a family feud, because of corruption. Look, the reasons why Ghanaians have gotten poorer, why hardship is where it is the level of greed, avarice, and corruption of this administration. Bamia is no different from Akufo-Addo.
Really?
Go to Cocoa Board and see single source projects. Me say for touchlight na nam kroma na bisa ba me ne yiri ni omo family for business omo ye Ghana. Me say any vote for Mahmoud Bawumia is the third term for Akufo-Addo and his family.
Let me ask you this. In John Dramani Mahama's book, My First Coup d'etat, Omeki refers to the fact that he finds it difficult in decision making or making decisions. And then the best is when he becomes the president of the Republic of Ghana, when it comes to decision making.
You know, I write a lot. And I will proudly say that my very first contribution to a very huge project was to a compendium of stories, writing a letter to my younger self. I think that before my contribution to that book, Naminim say Mr. Mahama was actually writing his story through the eyes of a young 7-year-old at the time. And I'm sure you realize that he recounts the story from when he was actually in Achimota Primary and his mother bringing him and leaving him a little kid. All of us can relate to that. I remember my trying to write Common Entry at the time when the coup had just happened and my parents having to move and losing jobs and my father going into Sawam for like a year. So I imagine what my life was like then. I probably could never have imagined that I would become this strong, bold and confident young woman all these years later. So I think that we evolve.
I see.
The only thing that is constant is that people evolve. But look at how Mahama faced and fixed Dumso single-handedly. Even when Dumso was weaponized and literally turned into a tool, an election-winning tool, he stood firm. Today, I'm delighted that our Deputy Energy Minister can admit that but for Mary, Greater Ashanti region will be grappling with power crisis. Mr. Mahama is a thinker par excellence. You see, look, Mr. Mahama is not a perfect human being. Even me that I serve him, I'm sure that if I probably wanted to think about 1 or 2 reasons why I would have issues, I would say them. But there's one thing I love about Mr. Mahama. He has a beautiful mind.
I see.
Sit with him and talk about education, talk about oil and gas. I remember conversations leading up to the Ghana Gas Company. And today my heart bleeds when I see how the family and friends have hijacked Ghana Gas. But go to Elubo and see what Ghana Gas has done for that community. For Ghana as a country, we have now saved $300 million on gas importations. When was the last time you saw gas cylinders? In fact, beautifully, I saw the new female MD of Ghana Cylinder Company Limited rebranding the whole company. But for that single initiative, that investment, who will be rebranding cylinders for crying out aloud? John Mahama lived way before his time.
How does Mr. Mahama feel, especially Okwa Ashanti region recently? How did he feel Okohu KGT markets and the uncompleted central markets?
You know, my brother, I always look back on the campaign of between 2012 and 2016, okay? From the mind of a very young politician, then just coming into this very difficult space for the very first time, you know, as a campaign spokesperson then. I look back on all the conversations that Madame Anatete, for example, used to have with me. And I watched how she worked even at those times. And I remember John Mahama himself as a campaign spokesperson years before that. And of course, my brother has Mahama Yarga. And you know, there's one thing that resonates with me. You see, Ashanti region, it's not a homogeneous region. And so when you hear the MPP talk about it, two-region agenda, you ask yourself, the NDC is a party of mass and broad appeal. We have just as many middle-level people as we have rural communities. There is only one political party with mass appeal in Ghana. It transcends religion, faith, tribe, name it. Why? Some of the most popular NDC operatives have been Ashantis, Akans, of strong reputations. Great interventions, PVOB, few gentlemen like him. So we don't have these issues within the NDC. But what I can say for a fact is that I know that even in the Ashanti region, the NDC and John Mahama enjoy enormous support. And that is what is important. What is the reason? Look at the interventions there. Because Mr. Mahama had this very firm grasp on what the economy needed. When our opponents went to the IMF and World Bank looking for the loan, what were they told? That they should go back to Setekpe's homegrown solutions. Eat Ghana, wear Ghana, improve on agric, cut back on wastage and cut back on reckless borrowing. Invest in what you eat. cut down on your import bill. And so they told them, go back and do your homework and return to sender. Have we not validated the solutions that Mr. Mahama had? But we all joined them to celebrate at the Ministry of Finance when Ken was celebrating with Wachi and Kenke. But what was Ken celebrating? He was celebrating personal aggrandizement because Data Bank benefited from all the capital markets that they were visiting as transaction advisors.
Interesting.
You understand? So, my brother, remember one thing. Leaders must also be consistent. I believe that when you read my first coup d'etat, Mr. Mahama hasn't really changed much. And funny enough, I met a medical doctor, a dentist friend of mine, who was mates with him on Legon campus. And he lives abroad, so he had actually not heard about him in like so long. Then he said to me, oh, you know, I just saw a video of John. He hasn't changed much.
I see.
He's still such a gentleman, still wearing his long sleeve shirts. And then he asked me, does he still tacking? And I laughed. I said, well, at over 62, I'm sure he will struggle to tack in every day. And we all laughed. So John Mahama will always be that kind of leader, a man that all of us can relate to. Why? They literally turned the media even against Mr. Mahama.
I see.
But when you look at Mr. Mahama's trajectory with even the media, look at the press freedoms. Look at our record, even on Afrobarometer. You understand? Where is Anas today? Where is Manasseh today? I believe that they owe John Mahama an apology.
Interesting.
Because he allowed them to thrive.
Wow.
Is Manasseh still not making noise about Zoom Lion and all the agreements and contracts? He used those things and weaponized them so much that Ghanaians actually elected to vote against John Mahama because of some of these things. How have all those people fared today?
Interesting. I got just about 16 more days. Now you're about to about. But my main camp for Sunday. You could fufu. I was dead of fufu delights. You could fufu, but we don't never call.
Unim say minim senior mudi TZ fufu.
Fufu de yo, guy. Oh, they were also DTZ no. The extended version of fufu.
Omu kasa ba nyampa. Unim say fufu dance.
Oh, sir.
Normally me pay TZ because it's lighter. Now bankusu is also chewy. Fufu is not like that.
Yes, because you pay
na matise ne kra cassava crabo. I didn't scarce and soon tea fufu kra and ne wusha. Exactly. Now only say ye di bayre yam fufu.
Yeah.
Me pay yam when it's boiled, but me pay so my
fufu. Oh, I see. Dinyami adoma ye de kwesi da tintim no. Oh, that day.
And so tintim no kra won say was say ofa sika count because in na wonya no wonya ne sana me say we have 16 days.
Okay. Eti nyame adoma kwese de be di fufu e wo fufu delight. Inti Mr. Obomodi aso be join e wo hono mo. Finally, JB, what is John Dramani Mahama's next move?
Well, I believe that he's told all of us that he's actually signing a social contract with the good people of Ghana.
Yes.
That he will be working on in the first 120 days of his time in office. So he's expecting that on jobs, on accountability, and funnily enough, on resetting our prosperity indices. So you look at it from the perspective of economic growth. Ghana's public debt today is at what? 740 billion. There's one thing you and I know about John Mahama.
Yeah.
He's a very modest man. I remember when they first brought him some Mercedes-Benz vehicles when he was in office. He told them all he liked was to sit in his Toyota Avensis. I'm sure that is the same man that we are still going to elect into office come December 07.
Very well.
And for his sincerity alone, I think the Ghanaians should actually reward him for being that leader who spoke truth to power, who told Ghanaians what the reality actually was and is. And if you look at the conversations around Ameri, around car power, ENI, look, today we are struggling because even on foreign direct investment, all our investors have left. You understand?
Yeah.
So, but for that investment in oil and gas, in the 10 and other gas installations, for example, where will we be today? And you see, for as long as you pay the independent power producers, power distribution stays positive. But look at it from the perspective of the Electoral Corporation of Ghana, ECG.
Yes.
Look at the losses that they have made over the years, and under whose watch? Look at the single source procurement that we talk about. Mr. Mahama will pass a fiscal act so that we can put a cap on borrowing.
Interesting.
You know, they come here and they spew all the lies. Talk to you about social interventions. My brother, There can be no bigger social intervention than an intervention that looks at the lifestyles of people, that improves the lifestyles of people. Get Fund was the single biggest social intervention in terms of our educational development. Look at the energy sector levy, for example. Where is all that money? Look at the MIF. Look at the Ghana Infrastructure Fund. Look at all those funds that were left. The Legacy Fund had 500 million. The Ghana Infrastructure Fund had $250 million. The buffers that we left had enough money to set us onto a path of recovery. Don't forget that when Mr. Mahama was leaving office, the World Bank had posited that Ghana's economy was bound to grow in 2017 by over 8% because of these investments in oil and gas that were going to come on stream. So, but for corruption, but for greed, but for the nepotistic administration being run by Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, certainly the level of hardships that we are experiencing should not even be.
Very well. Thank you very much, lawyer Joyce Bawah. Onua, the spokesperson, the former president, and the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, the NDC. Joyce Bawah. Yeah, that's it for your time this morning.
Thank you very, very much. May God bless us all.
May God bless us all. I got 16 more days to election. On behalf of these wonderful people, Dachi Hene, Nana Kwame, Lois, Henry, and of course, DJ Kobo. Have a good morning.
Onua 95.1 FM. 95.1 FM. Yeah,